were on full display this week. I'm sure you saw this heated exchange between one of conservative media's biggest stars, Megyn Kelly, and Trump supporter Newt Gingrich. You know, there's a lot of conversation about how he accused her of being fascinated by sex. But look at this exchange a couple minutes before that.
You think Trump's going to win Pennsylvania?
Look, all I can report to you right now is they're outvoting the Democrats in early voting, which is also true in Florida, which is unprecedented.
But all of the polls in Pennsylvania have her winning.
What?
All of the polls in Pennsylvania have her ahead.
I know. I just told you we have two alternative universes right now.
All of the moves that have been on this map over the past 3 weeks by Larry Sabato, by Cook, by the Fox News decision desks. These are nonpartisan outlets that are just trying to call the electoral
scoreboard. They're not nonpartisan outlets. Every outlet you described is part of the establishment.
Fox News? Really? Are we? I don't think so.
And they all...
What a revealing moment there. Gingrich saying that Fox News is part of the problem. He's a paid Fox News contributor, by the way. But he was right about the parallel universes. I think we all feel it right now. The timing of that fight was fascinating because it happens that Kelly is in negotiations with Fox about a new contract, a big new contract. But she may summer. Rupert Murdoch took her contract talks public this week, saying he wants her to stay, but there's lots of other people who could take her place. So how will the results of the November 8th election affect all these cracks that have splintered conservative media, and perhaps more importantly, the GOP itself? And what's next for Kelly? Joining me now, a trio of top conservative media columnists. Jennifer Rubin of The Washington Post, she writes the Right Turn blog there. Rich Noyes, a research director for the Media Research Center and a senior editor for newsbusters.org. And back with us, Matt Lewis, a CNN political commentator and senior contributor at the Daily Caller. Rich, your study this week got a lot of attention, including from Trump and Mike Pence. You said 91% of media coverage on the nightly news of Donald Trump was hostile in the 12 weeks that were after the conventions leading up until now. Now, tell us about how you came to that conclusion. What does that 91% number represent?
Well, we looked at all the evaluative statements. We stripped out the campaign rhetoric. We didn't count Trump sound bites about Hillary Clinton or about himself or vice versa. This is the reporter statements, the nonpartisan experts they'd bring in, the voters they'd bring in, partisans who broke the partisan mold that would then get attention on the news, things that really lent a spin. We found almost 700 statements about Trump. 91% of them were negative. We found fewer than 200 about Hillary Clinton. About 79% of those were negative as well. But my conclusion looking at that is that she's really was out of the line of fire in the news media up until, I guess, this past weekend. And he was the central focus, and it was very, very negative.
When you look at the fairness between the coverage of Clinton and Trump, would you think it's fair to say that Clinton has had fewer controversies or more controversies for the nightly news to cover?
Well, she's got her controversies, and they're certainly though getting less airtime. We found 440 minutes of this airtime devoted to Trump controversies, 185, about 40% of that to Hillary Clinton. Now, you could argue that the email controversy, which is now back in the news, the Clinton Foundation pay for play, those are potentially very significant controversies about her time in public office, going right to questions of ethics and competence, and yet those were getting far less coverage than, say, Trump and his behavior towards women, which is certainly a valid issue, Trump's taxes, things like that the media seemed more eager to cover, whereas with Hillary Clinton, they seemed ready to call that old news again until this weekend. Our study stopped October 20th.
Jennifer, do you look at this study and see the playing field being tilted in Clinton's direction?
No, I see that this is actually the Donald Trump strategy. To the consternation of Republicans, whenever the coverage and the storyline has drifted to Hillary onto terms that might actually be beneficial, he's grabbed the spotlight back. He knows exactly what he's doing. This is how he, frankly, got through the primaries, when he got overwhelming coverage by the networks. So I don't think that this is necessarily the media choosing to root for one side or to make him look bad. It is an intentional strategy on his part. I also think that, frankly, you could take any segment of the election, these 12 weeks. If you took the period of time, for example, when the FBI, the news was quite negative for a very long period of time against Hillary. So there is an ebb and flow, and I think just to say 91% of it during these few weeks goes this way doesn't look at the election as a whole. And I think it will be interesting at the end to see how the numbers play out over the entire election season.
Matt, talking about Newt Gingrich here, talking about that Newt Gingrich-Megyn Kelly exchange, I played that parallel universes soundbite because I think it's the key to understanding what's going on right now. The folks are in their own echo chambers. Do you have any advice here, all sides, during this election?
Well, I mean, I think that it's really a microcosm right now, as you were saying, of the conservative movement. I mean, Newt Gingrich is wearing his hat as in the role of a surrogate, so you would expect him to defend Trump. So that sort of deserves an asterisk. But even if you put that aside, I think you have a sort of a nationalist, populist, pro-Trump conservative movement that Breitbart.com is maybe the most indicative of that. And then you have a more mainstream, maybe the National Review is more indicative of that. I think Megyn Kelly is sort of at the center of this. If Fox News keeps Megyn Kelly, then I think it's a clear sign that they're going to be, that they want to move in the sort of a thoughtful center-right National Review direction. If she goes, and you have, for example, Sean Hannity becoming the marquee primetime host, then it's a sign that they're going the other direction. So as the conservative movement is sort of splitting away and trying to decide what it's about, Fox News is like a microcosm of that battle.
Rich, do you agree, or do you agree with Matt, or is it possible that Fox News can be all things to all conservatives or even moderates?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, Fox is going through its own changes right now, but, you know, they have been up until the election. Well, I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, Fox is going through its own election, and really including this election, the one place on television, cable television news, where conservatives felt they were getting a fair shake, getting some respect, getting their point of view across. Now conservatives are split amongst themselves, so some are unhappy with Fox on one night, or they like this host, they don't like that host. So, you know, when the conservative movement sort of pulls itself together, it'll be easier to serve them as a constituency. Until then, it's going to be more difficult.
You know, you tweeted something earlier, Rich, that stood out to me. There's been a couple of polls showing that most Americans think the media writ large wants Clinton to win, not Trump to win. And that feels to me like a problem. It feels to me like a problem if most Americans think that the scales are somehow tilted in Clinton's favor. And yet at the same time, I don't know how to separate that from Trump's dominant anti-media rhetoric that he's always candidacy. When you look at the polls that show that, do you think that it has a lot to do with Trump's anti-media rhetoric, which he has toned down in recent days?
Well, I mean, that's part of it, but the other part of it is you have journalists. This week, Dana Milbank was one who got out and say the press can't play it fair anymore. The press can't play it neutral to be neutral.
But he's a liberal columnist.
Well, I know, but he is talking to other journalists. He is suggesting that it is illegitimate to give Trump the same treatment you would any other there, and take sides because it's too important to leave to the voters to make up the decision themselves. You know, they're basically playing into Trump's hands and saying it is a rigged game, and then they're demonstrating that with their coverage every night, being much more adversarial against Trump than against Hillary Clinton.
Well, Jennifer, you work at the Post. How do you feel?
I disagree, and I think this is one of the problems with conservative media and conservative watchdogs. They don't, for example, as you pointed out, distinguish between the actual reporters and the columnists. I don't think anyone can accuse David Fahrenthold, who has done really Pulitzer Prize-winning work, investigative reporting, as being by his job. He's digging. Part of this is fueled by the fact that Donald Trump refuses to reveal a lot of information that most candidates have traditionally done. So there's more to find out on that side. But I would say something else. Fox for a long time has played this game of saying, well, we have our opinion shows, Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly, but then we have straight news from people like Kelly and people like Brit Hume and so on. And I think what has happened is these distinctions have gotten completely blurred. They put Sean Hannity at a desk that looks like a news desk. They have the bug on it that says Fox News. And so that they have really sort of eviscerated these distinctions between what is real news, what is hard news, what has to be corroborated, what is based on facts, and what Hannity and O'Reilly do. And I think that was a mistake for them. I think it has denigrated from their real news people like Megyn Kelly, like Bret Baier, by associating them, and then everyone thinks that Fox is Sean Hannity. Everyone thinks that Fox is Bill O'Reilly. And when you point that out, they get very offended. But frankly, it's a game that they started and they exploit.
Hannity has been raising the prospect of voter fraud, and when you look at polling, that compares fans of CNN versus fans of Fox, for example, you'll find that Fox viewers are much more concerned the election results could be manipulated. Jennifer, do you feel that conservative media leaders are misleading their audience about that?
Some of them are. And again, it's very hard to say conservative media anymore because there are very big distinctions. Listen, some of the best analysis debunking the it's being rigged has been done by conservative media, has been done by National Review and others. So I think you have to really separate those people who maintain a journalistic standard of accuracy, of fairness, and those who are simply shooting off the top of their heads. Listen, Sean Hannity perpetrated the birther lie too. And that is my objection to putting those folks on with a news label, because they're making stuff up, and that's not news.
I'm all out of time here, but thank you all three of you for being here. I appreciate it this morning. Thanks.